it's interesting that a lot of editors were models
Yeah.
because they understand the business and they understand models. I've been so lucky. I could tear up thinking about the relationships that I have to the editors because they are so vital to me. And we're behind the scenes laughing like, oh my God, here I am.
Yeah.
You go through so many things with people on a shoot, and often the photographer is the one who is taking the pictures, and then behind the scenes, the hair, makeup, the editor. We're all getting through it, and then you capture the image, and that's what makes a good model. Those relationships, you can't
Yeah.
just show up and be beautiful.
Right.
You cannot. No
deeper.
successful model in history has just showed up and was beautiful. You have to bring more to a picture. You have to
Right.
be
And
willing.
that's
I adore all the editors I've
Yeah.
worked with: Tawny, Brana, Katie Grand, Tabitha, Edward Enumful. The common theme is that we've formed such deep friendships. They are family, and they just take me as I am. I adore Grace. I view Grace as a surrogate mother. She has been such a protector and such a teacher. She's had my back from the beginning. She got me in American Vogue. She's kept me in American Vogue.
I'm Jill Demling, and this is Going Rogue. Karen Elson is a study in contradictions, and that's exactly her power. Pale skin in an era of bronzed goddesses, red hair when blonde was everything, otherworldly beauty in an industry built on conventional perfection, a voice that demanded to be heard in a career built on silence. You know her face, that pre-Raphaelite beauty that's graced over 30 international Vogue covers, the red flame who walked for McQueen, Chanel, Versace, and everyone who mattered. The muse to Steven Meisel, Tim Walker, Peter Lindbergh. But Karen Elson was never content to be just a beautiful face. She's a musician, 3 critically acclaimed albums that prove she's a real songwriter with her own voice. An activist fighting for models' rights through the Fashion Workers Act, an author who wrote The Red Flame to tell the truth about what really happens behind the beauty. And now, she's stepping into acting because why stop creating? But before all of that, before the music, before the activism, before the truth-telling, there were magazines. There was a girl from Oldham who didn't fit in anywhere until she found a world where not fitting in was exactly the point. This conversation is about transformation, about finding your voice when everyone expects you to stay silent, about turning pain into power. Put on your brightest red lipstick, crank up some green, and listen as Karen Elson goes rogue. If you want to see the images we discussed today, head to our Instagram at goingrogue.podcast or our website, goingroguepodcast.com. And please like and subscribe. Hello, Karen.
Hi, Jill.
I want to thank you so much for doing this. You're one of those rare people who has managed to have not one, but multiple careers at the highest level: supermodel, musician, activist, author, and now actor. And you did it by refusing to stay in any lane. So let's go back to the beginning. And before I start, I want to let you know how this works. I'll sometimes ask a cluster of questions or give you context, and then I just want you to talk. This is more of a masterclass than a Q&A. I want to hear your story in your words. So I think it's always important, especially for Gen Z listeners dreaming of a career in fashion, to learn how someone got to where they are. And your story is different from a lot of my guests because you didn't study fashion or apprentice under someone. You were born with a look, and that look determined your future. You've said, I grew up in the north of England in a town called Oldham near Manchester. You can catch a train to London in 3.5 hours, but when you're growing up, it seems like a world away. Working class, your dad was a joiner in construction, your mom was a former dinner lady, you had a twin sister, Kate. At school, you were the outsider, pale skin, red hair, gangly, bullied, called the ghost who walks because of your pale skin. You've said, I was an oddball kid, a bit of an eccentric. At school, I was the scrawny girl with buck teeth and ginger hair, and You know how cruel kids can be. Well, I was often the target of their cruelty. The bullying took a real toll. You began to suffer from panic attacks, which led you to refuse food. At just 7 years old, you were hospitalized for an eating disorder. But here's the twist: it was the psychologist you were referred to after being discharged who suggested you might model. He was the first person, you said, who complimented you on your appearance. From that moment, you nurtured a dream of escape. You'd said, I'd sit and envision where I needed to get to. When you have nothing to lose, you play all your cards in your hand. You had the Face magazine, flipping through those pages, seeing those off-kilter beauties, knowing you weren't meant to stay where you were. When Nick Knight asked you what models you idolized growing up, you said, obviously, being a teenager of the 90s, Kate was always the most haunting image. When I was growing up, it was the supermodels, the titans of absolute strong femininity. And Kate had something so beautiful, so real, so enchanting. She was smaller and she didn't fit the mold. I feel like she really opened the door for models to become different looking. And then there's Kristen McMenemy. I'd always look at her Lindbergh pictures and go, that's the kind of model I want to be. I was really into how deep she'd take it. Something with Kristen. She's a wild card in the beauty of melancholy. You attended an open casting at a Manchester model agency and were chosen. Every Thursday, pretending you were going to the orthodontist, you'd make your way to the agency for lessons in how to pose. When you confided the truth to a school friend, it became a joke. Most thought you were delusional. One bully screamed in your face that you weren't fit to model socks because you were so fucking ugly. You've said it crushed me, but at the same time, it made me unbelievably determined to prove everybody wrong and to prove to myself that I could live an incredible life. When you walked out of school for the last time at 16, you said, I felt as though a burden had been lifted. You were on a train to London the following day. I want to stop here, ask you a few questions, and then we'll get to London and the early modeling years. So,
Yeah, you really do your research. I love it.
I do. I've lived with you for a week now. I feel like I'm your twin sister.
I appreciate it. I really do.
Yeah. So tell us about growing up, your earliest memories, when you first noticed fashion, where that drive to escape came from, your relationship with your parents. Was your mother into fashion? Was she supportive of modeling?
You know, so yeah, I grew up in a town in northern England it was near a town called Oldham. The town I grew up in was a town called Chatterton. You have to be in northern England to kind of understand it. It's a cluster of these sort of very working class northern English towns, terraced houses, council estates. There's a term that they say in England called it's grim up north. And I can understand that because it was pretty grim, but at the same time, when that's all you know, that's all you know. And I grew up I have a twin sister, Kate, who is still somebody I'm obviously extremely close to. She now lives in Spain. And I have two half brothers who, by the time my sister and I were born, were well into their mid to late teens. And while I was close with my brother, Tim, but yeah, we grew up with just a very working class Northern English town where the expectations of somebody like myself or my sister, nobody was really expecting us to do anything great or be anything. And a lot of it was just surviving. I mean, my parents got divorced when I was around 7, which also ties into, I think that was the reason when I got hospitalized when I was 7, I kept having crippling anxiety attacks. And every time I would eat food, I'd think that I was choking. It was like I had this sort of psychosomatic thing where I felt like I was choking when I would eat. And it wasn't that it was a conscious, like, oh my God, I think I'm overweight, or
Right.
it was pure anxiety. But it went on for a very, very long time.
My sister had that during
Really?
My parents, we had to put her on Ensure, a drink, because it wasn't about weight. It's about a control.
It's about
a control and some sort of physical reaction to an anxiety that you
exactly. It's when you're young and there's real conflict in your household, which there was. I mean, I'm not going to blame my parents. I mean, again, I realize as I get older, like they had their circumstances which they were navigating.
Exactly.
And there's no such thing back where I grew up, when I grew up, in the time I grew up. there wasn't really access to like psychologists or psychiatrists or family counseling or whatever. People were just surviving. So there was a
And
lot of
definitely in England. I mean, even
stiff
up
upper
to this
lip,
day.
just
Yeah.
deal with it. And I am a very sensitive person. I was a very sensitive person as a child. And I just felt everything. I felt every argument. I felt the lingering tension, and my way of absorbing that or way of controlling it or feeling safe within it was the anxiety, or I'm not going to eat. It was a cry for help,
Right.
obviously, but it went on for so long. And I remember going to the doctors with my mother, and they're making me drink this drink called Lucasade, which is an energy drink.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't, it was unbearable. It was like I would eat and I'm like, oh, just the anxiety. And anyways, I got hospitalized. It was necessary. I'd lost so much weight. I'm 7. And then the day I got into hospital, the day I got in, I remember the next morning waking up and they sat with me at breakfast and I could eat. And it was obvious
Wow.
the environment was
Yes.
really the sort of the thing that was creating. And again, the older I get, it's like I do not blame my parents at all. They were just surviving the
Yeah,
best
we
way they
don't
knew
have
how.
there's no guide to
No,
life,
and I've
right?
done
Yeah.
enough therapy in my life at this point to understand that we're all coming into this life with our own lot, right?
Right.
But again, for my lot, it was the thing that just I held everything. But anyways, this psychiatrist that I saw him just one time. Good old English. It's
Yeah.
like you're going to see a psychiatrist one time after I got discharged from the hospital. I was there for a couple of weeks or something like that, and I remember him telling me. He looked at me and he was very paternal. He was very paternal, and he was like, "You're so pretty, He's like, "You're so sweet." And he's like, "One day, maybe you'll grow up and be a model." And I was like, "Oh, no one's ever said that to me. No one's ever called me beautiful before." And it planted a little seed that I didn't realize until then, fast forward
Yeah.
maybe 8 years later, where it's England in the 90s, it's Great Britain in the 90s, it's the height of grunge,
Yeah.
fashion. Kate, Linda, Kristen McMenamy, Naomi, Guinevere, those were the girls who were in the magazines who I, as a teenage girl, would go up to Manchester and go shopping at Topshop when Topshop was like the
Yeah.
place, or to all the little vintage stores. And you'd go to the newsagents and flip through the magazines, and the magazines were just amazing. It was like, like how music can transport you to another place. Fashion and fashion photography in the early 90s, it was like opening up sort of a Pandora's box of fantasy and going, gosh, I live in this sort of grim, bleak, tough world where I go to school and all the boys are like mocking me for being knock-kneed and bucktooth,
Yeah.
and I don't really have any friends, and I feel really sort of alone and isolated because the music I like, nobody else really likes it, and I'm shy and awkward. And then I would open up a fashion magazine and go, oh wow, I feel like that girl. I
Yeah.
feel
Oh
like
my
this
God.
person. There was a girl, she was very popular, and I can't remember her name. I wish for the life of me I could. And she was like the real popular girl at school. And you have to be Northern English to understand this. Like bleached blonde hair, like plucked eyebrows, like almost in a circle. She always
Yeah.
had like a fake tan, and all the boys fancied her. She just was so sort of, gorgeous, but she was really sweet to me. And it was kind of counterintuitive because a lot of other people were like, you're fucking ugly. And
Right.
and she one day took me aside because she wanted to be a makeup artist, and that was her thing. And she was like, oh, she was like, I really think you could be a model. And I was
Oh
like, oh
my
my God, I can't believe this
God.
girl's telling me this. So, anyways, it's the 6 week summer holidays in England, and I'm probably 14 or something. And back before we had the internet, we had the yellow pages. Remember the
Right.
yellow pages? Do you remember when you would look?
Yes.
And I
Yes.
looked at model agencies in the yellow pages, and they had all the dodgy ones, like,
Yeah.
again, sort of like, come have your portfolio picture taken, or
Oh, I know. I did something
glamour
like
modeling,
that. Yep. Yep.
where I was like, well, I don't have I have no cleavage, so to speak. So I was like, well,
Right.
that's off the table. Not that I even thought that I wanted to do that, but
Right.
it's. And I saw this one model agency called Boss Model Agency, and I remembered. This is so funny. I remembered reading an interview in a magazine called Just 17. And I'm going to tie this in. Just 17 was the English version of 17 magazine, but just 17. And
so
like the
funny.
Beatles song, she was just 17, you know, and I remembered reading an article about the band Take That. Remember them? And they're from where
I've read a lot
they were
about Take That from your interviews, and I'm like, I don't remember. Is that
the
the
boy
time of
band. I
New
mean,
Kids on the Block? I was
I
all New
loved
Kids on the Block.
the music I loved when I was younger. It was like PJ Harvey, Nick Cave, Velvet Underground. But when I did get into sort of teeny things, it was Take That, because they were from where I was from. They're northern boys. And there was one of them lived in my town. And anyway, I read an interview about them, and it said that one of them got their start at Boss Models. And I was like, Boss Model, okay, that's who I'm going to call. And I called, got shy, couldn't speak, hung up, called again, got shy, couldn't speak. Third time's a charm. Called, and they said they had an open casting like the following week. And I skipped school, went and did an open casting. And I was the last name that they picked out of like 50 people. And I remember her showing me the agent, Debbie Burns, who I'm still close with. I love her. She's fantastic. She's like an acting agent, a model agent, specifically up north, but she's a very classy lady. And she showed me years later that she wrote like really unusual, beautiful, you know, and editorial. And this is at 14 years old. And she knew that I was not going to be like typical Manchester model. I mean, also the girl who got picked out that day was Davinia Taylor. Remember Davinia? She used to go out with she's like an English celebrity now. Back when I remembered her, I mean, I've met her over the years. She used to go out with the footballer Ryan Giggs, and she used to drive a BMW, and used to think, oh my God, she's so fabulous. Like I'm going back on my train to my little terraced house, two up, two down, and she's driving in a gorgeous BMW, and you're like, oh my God, she's so fabulous. But that was the beginning. But again, I think an ongoing theme in my career has been you can get lucky, but you also have to then work hard, because luck is incredible. And luck is something that has followed me. And it is something that I feel so privileged to have good fortune. But I've also made my luck as well. And that's a thing. It's a real thing that I have this
a lot of people that we talk a lot about right place, right time.
Yeah.
But there's something about all of these people, you included, me included. We were open to being in the right place at the right time. It's a certain person, because I don't know if it's luck. Is it destiny? Is it, I don't
know. The older I get, it's like you get lucky, but you have to rise to the occasion. And sometimes you don't get what you want as well. And I do have this push-pull, because there's many years where I felt like I had to fight to get anything. And the older I get, the more I'm like, okay, loosen your grip a little and let the things that will come to you. Like, it's like finding the difference sort of magic Goldilocks zone of, there were many years in my life where I felt like I had to fight to get somewhere. Even in my career as a model, when I first became successful as a model, there were so many people. I remember after I did that beautiful Vogue cover with Meisel,
we're going to get there.
We're going to get there. Anyway, I was just saying, in the beginning, it was just, fashion was so important to a teenage girl in the 90s. It was just everything. You had the clothes show, this English TV show,
culture.
The clothes show.
It wasn't just fashion.
Culture. It was how you identified yourself, where you shopped, what magazines you read, what music you listened to, what clothing you wore, how you styled it. It was so individual. And I feel that back then it shaped you. It's like the way when you go into a museum and you look at a beautiful piece of art, like fashion moved me back then more than anything else. And I wanted to be in that world, and I wanted to be around those people, because I felt like they would get me. And turns out they did. Thank God.
And I was going to ask you just about the college thing. It's interesting, because when I had Gucci Westman on, she spoke about it so eloquently. She said, I don't feel like I'm a traditional college candidate. And this is the only world that feels safe to say that I didn't go. I could never say that in front of any of the other parents that I know, except for in the fashion world, where a lot of people have not gone to college. We're going to get into the early modeling years, but was there ever a question, or was it, I'm just doing this? And your parents, did
It
they have
it
higher
wasn't a
expectations?
question. From where I grew up, I knew with my personality and how people viewed me as I grew up, I knew that I had to do this in essence to, I'm going to sound really dramatic, but for me, it was like, I have to save myself
Yeah,
because I have no other choice. Now, granted, my half brother Tim is a microbiologist. He's got a PhD. My uncle went to Oxford, but it's or Cambridge. I'm not sure. He's a NASA scientist for many years, but then the women in my family, like my mother wasn't afforded the right to go to college, and I just knew how we grew up
right,
and the limited funds that were available. Like,
right,
there's a song that John Lennon wrote called Working Class Hero. And it really summarized how I grew up. You go to your careers advisor when you're like 13, 14. They don't care if you're like, I'm
right,
an artist, I'm a creative, I want to follow a creative path. They're like, yeah, okay, so you want to travel, you should be an air hostess, or you should work as as a travel agent. That's what they literally said, because
right,
I said I wanted to travel. And there was not much expected of me. And
right,
I was a dreamer. I was a
right,
dreamer. I would look out of my bedroom window at the sort of stark landscape and I would daydream. And I was like, I need to be in a place where I can daydream. And I knew that about myself, but I also knew how I grew up, nobody really would understand. Now,
right,
granted, of course, my parents were like, there's a bit of a stigma about models, right? It's like models, what does that
right,
mean? Where's
right,
she going? What is she doing? She's going to leave home. She's going to get on a train and move to London. We don't have a lot of money. You're going to need a bit of money at first to support yourself. It was scary for them because nobody in their family had ever done anything quite as risky.
right,
And it was me, the sort of shy, kind of sensitive one. And they were scared and unsure, and it was out of their comfort zone
right,
entirely. So there were arguments about it. There were
right.
fights. Even my parents fighting about who's going to give her, I think I went to London with like traveler's checks or something like that.
Yeah, let's get to the early years. So the day after you finished your GCSEs, you caught the train to London, walked into Models One, and never looked back. You were 16. You've said modeling was the best thing that could have happened because it gave me the opportunity to leave. In a way, it kept me out of a lot of trouble. Honestly, all my friends were getting pregnant, some were turning to really hard drugs. I had to escape. They sent you to Tokyo for 3 months. You've said, I was so young, I still hadn't kissed a boy yet. That's where you met Tabitha Simmons, who's still one of your best friends. But the bullying didn't stop when you left school. It continued and got worse. In New York, an agent offered you money for every pound you lost, so you put yourself on a starvation diet. At 19, during a fitting for Milan Fashion Week, you were mocked for your weight and dropped from the show. Word spread you were canceled from every show that season. Your agent told you to eat vegetables for a month. But there was one person in Milan who saw something. You've said there was this one stylist, Paolo Turini, and I did test shoots with him all the time, and he just kept saying, go to New York. If Meisel meets you, your career's changed. Don't bother going to any other city. They're not going to understand you. You need somebody like Meisel. So we'll stop there and we'll get to the meeting that changed
Yeah.
everything after. But tell us
Yes.
about this time in your life. You weren't even an adult. You were a
No,
child, and I'm getting it.
I
Dating
was.
in an adult industry alone. How did you do it? Did you ever consider going home, or was that just unthinkable?
Going home was unthinkable. I mean, there was definitely moments where it didn't seem like it was working out and the fear started creeping in, like, oh God, because it was more I had to convince my family, and when the money
Right.
started running out, the
And
money
you
I'd
you
made.
couldn't tell them then when bad
No,
things were
because they'd
happening.
be, there was the thing of you've
Oh my
got,
God.
if I told them, it would be like, and it wasn't,
Right.
I'm not going to say anyone was like overly concerned about my well being. It was more, you got to come home and get a real job. It's like,
Right.
come
But
home and
if you
get.
had shared some of this stuff, probably, but then they would have made you come home. So that's hard too. It's like,
Yeah, it's sort of, it's tricky. So I went to Tokyo when I was 16, but yeah, I was so young. I mean, Tokyo was fantastic. It's actually like a very safe place for a young model to go to.
yeah,
I found it much more difficult to navigate Paris and Milan when I was 16 and 17 because I would go on the subway or the metro in Paris and there were guys just touching you.
yeah.
You get on the
Karen
subway.
Mulligan tells a story about
It's
someone,
awful.
a
Like
very
men,
lewd act. Yes,
yes,
on the subway.
there was a lot of lewd acts
Right.
on the subway. I would get followed by men doing very gross things in front of me.
Well, and
And
because you don't look like for me when I traveled, I could
right.
fit in Italy and other places. You
No,
definitely,
you stick out like a sore thumb and they
right,
know that you're a
right.
model and they know that you're
Exactly.
like don't know where you're going. I mean, and it was
Exactly.
scary and it was almost daily, like the daily grind of you're going to castings, you're getting rejected from those castings. And then on your way to the castings, you're having to dodge and avoid predatory men who are just waiting in the wings of your journey to try and attempt to harm you in some way or scare you. And
Yeah.
it was quite traumatic. And it was very difficult to navigate that. And then going to Tokyo was actually a breath of relief because it's just a lot safer. The culture there is a lot safer, and I had a hell of a lot of fun. It's just that you're so far away. I had my
Yeah.
17th birthday in Tokyo
Oh
and
my
with
God.
Tabitha actually, and it was a place where I finally made a bit of money. I made like $25,000, which back in the 90s was like, holy
Yeah.
shit, you've made some money. And it sort of
Yeah.
helped take the burden off the
Right.
pressure of if you don't make it, you've got to come home and get a job in Tesco's or whatever
Yeah.
it may be. And it did take the pressure off. But then the moment you start making money is the moment then I'm from a working class family. The moment people are in your family go,
Yeah.
oh, who do you think you are? You're making more. It's not normal for a child to make
Right.
more money than her parents make in a year, and it started changing my dynamic
Right.
in a way. And it became that thing of, oh, well, I need a new car. Oh, this person needs this other person needs that. I was then put in a position that you feel like you have to take care of everyone. I actually really
Right.
have so much empathy for child stars. I'm not going to say I was a child star
Right. But
because I
still,
think it's very
it's
different, but I have a lot of empathy for young people who get well known really quickly
right.
because I think there is this burden put on their shoulders to then take care of the extended family and you're a
Yeah.
kid
Yeah.
and it's really tricky and I started being put in that position and then
Yeah.
it kind of breaks apart all your
Yeah.
family dynamics because it's the power play gets really twisted and
Yeah.
that started to become very difficult to
Well,
manage
it's
and
funny when I was researching, there was like Manchester News, like articles about you.
God, and people were so mean especially about my body which I found like Jill, it's like when I reflect, it's so shocking to me how people so openly talked about a young woman's body
Oh,
and how when I look at pictures of myself back then, I'm like, how could they possibly call me any of these names? And what the hell was that about? And I remember there was one article, I think it was like in the either like the Independent or the Telegraph or the Times, one English sort of broadsheet newspaper being essentially like, she better enjoy it while it lasts, because it's not going to last because she's just a dumpy little Northern English girl, uncultured, and she
I,
better enjoy it while she lasts. And I remember reading that and going, oh my God, people are so cruel. And I see it even today. I mean, look, Ozempic culture has definitely, I think,
yeah.
brought a rise to skinniness again. And I was like, wait, I was like a size 2, barely US. And I was being canceled from fashion shows because I didn't fit. I was like, that's so dark.
Yeah. No, it's
And
crazy because during that time period, I mean, anything before Me Too or before this cancel culture, and maybe that's the one benefit of Instagram, the one is that people were called out and that behavior has lessened. There's no way it's changed. I mean, the people I know that were like that, they're still working. So, and you
yeah,
can't really
yeah.
change, you know,
The
so
older I get, you realize it's the environment you're in and it's the pressure cooker.
yeah,
And I'm a big believer, like I can have conversations with people now and be like, God, remember when you said that to me?
yeah,
And we can be like, oh,
yeah,
let's talk about it, you
yeah,
know? But back then it was tricky because I had nothing else to fall back on. It's funny because I talked to actually a young model the other day about this because she was talking about how she feels like she has to look a certain way, body size wise, still for certain shows and certain designers. And we were talking about how I used to feel the way she felt, but I never looked in the mirror and went, oh my God, I need to lose weight. I never thought that I looked bad.
right.
It
It
wasn't
didn't,
that I was like, oh my God, I have the body dysmorphia that I thought that I looked
right,
terrible, but my livelihood
right, depended on it.
depended on it.
Yes,
My
yes,
livelihood depended on it. And that's where it gets really dark because when your livelihood depends on losing 10 pounds so you can have food on the table or
yeah,
like not go back to a borderline abusive scenario
right,
back home,
yeah.
you'll do what it
That's, oh,
takes.
you'll do it.
And I don't think people understand that's what a lot of models are
I have
dealing
to
with.
do
We're
it.
not dealing with the idea that we want to. And
Want to,
most of the models
yes,
recognize it's absolutely insane. The
yeah,
editors who want you to do that, the designers
yeah,
who want you to do that, we're all secretly, all the girls talk.
right,
We're all talking behind the scenes like, oh my God, can you believe that they want that kind, like they want us to be that
yeah,
tiny? But again, when people's livelihood depends on it, it's like being a ballerina. When your job
right,
requires it,
right,
you're trying to towing the line. And that's where it got really dark for me because it got really confusing because I knew in my heart and soul that I did not need to lose weight, but I didn't want to go home.
right,
So it's this double bind. I've spent
yes,
years in therapy trying to unravel what that means and get to the point where it's like, you know what, at my age, like I'm showing up as I am,
exactly,
not out of any kind of spite, but it's like, you
right,
gotta just take up space. But it's taken me a long time to feel okay with saying, this is who I am. These are my boundaries. This is my
right,
body. I'm not going to sound like toxic positivity here. It's not like I wake up and go, I love myself, like acceptance, self
yes,
acceptance,
yeah,
right? And almost in a way where you just have to take up space, not in a physical sense, but in an emotional sense. Walk in
right,
the room and be like, I'm confident for who I am and the lived experience that I've had. I'm afforded that because I've been around the block and I'm still in
right,
this industry many decades later. This young model I was talking to, it broke my heart because she's so brilliant and successful. And it made me sad that she, still in this day and age, feels that conflict because she knows she is absolutely gorgeous
yeah,
as she is, but she also knows that she's going to work less,
right,
choosing to not hurt herself.
right,
And that is where I wish the industry could empathize for these models. Like, what's it going to take to be like, it's okay to have the sample be a size or two up? Like, my
right,
thing is, it's like the casting of, oh, we'll have a couple of
yeah,
curve models.
right,
And then we'll have the ultra skinny models. And again, it's the designer's discretion. They have to have creative freedom too, but just to understand on a heart level, like, hey,
right,
do you understand what a lot of these traditional editorial models have to put their bodies through, not because they want to, but
right,
because you set the standard. So
right,
maybe let's change the standard just
exactly,
slightly. But
exactly,
but anyways, like it was really difficult to navigate. It was difficult to navigate being the odd one out, but that's the thing that has served me well. And that's the arc here.
yes,
The
so,
thing
yeah,
that sort of made me feel insecure when I was 16, 17, 18 my weirdness, quote unquote, has been the thing that has kept me in the game this
Yeah,
long.
so
So,
let's get you to that moment. So
yes.
Paolo Turini was right. You got to New
Mm.
York and your agent set up the meeting. You've written, I vividly remember landing in New York. I was wearing a ratty vintage coat, a baby doll dress with bright orange tights and Converse sneakers, looking like a bargain basement Technicolor Daisy Buchanan. And nobody liked me in New York. Nobody gave a damn. But my agent said, I really want you to meet my friend Steven Meisel. So I went to his studio and met Steven, and Paul Cavacco was there actually. And he just sort of looked at me and he raised his eyebrows as Stephen does, cocked his head, and looked at me and said, Tell me about yourself. And I did. And that was that. And I just kept crossing my fingers when I walked away, like I really hope he liked me. And then the next day got an option to do a shoot. So when I met him, it was so serendipitous in the way that we clicked, and I was just willing to be shaped and molded. He was my knight in shining armor. The Steven Meisel School of Modeling is a very prestigious school of modeling. He teaches you how to use your body in a picture and how to connect with the camera, and he has such a sensitive way of talking to you. Then came the transformation. You had to meet the team, Brana Wolf, Pat McGrath, Garen, at Pier 59 Studios. This was actually Pat's first major shoot.
Mm.
There was a lot of discussion about what to do with you. Black hair or red hair, eyebrows, no eyebrows, and you've said you told them do whatever you want. Before modeling, you'd always been chopping your hair, often dyeing in weird colors anyway. But as a model, everyone was so scared to do anything. You've said that they wanted you to be nothing almost. Stephen and the team decided red hair, choppy bob, shaved eyebrows. You said, that shoot was my 18th birthday, and I remember feeling like finally someone saw something in me that I knew lived in me. And I get chills with this. I knew that that woman was in there. I just needed a chance to shine, and Stephen allowed me to bust out of my shell, even with shaving my eyebrows off with Pat McGrath and cutting my hair. I was kind of like strawberry blonde, mousy little ginger. I looked in the mirror and I'm like, this is
Mm.
me. And it's kind of odd to say that that big transformation could actually remind me more of who I was. You were 18 and flat broke when you got your big break. You said, I gave him
Yes.
everything I had. We shot for 2 glorious hours. I'd never felt more excited in my life. I left the studio to go back into the snow with only my single subway token, but I'd never felt so joyful. I'd never felt more seen, more beautiful, more wholly myself. Okay, so now this is after the cover, this quote. When the magazine came out with me on the cover, my career skyrocketed, but I was also viewed by some as a circus sideshow freak. The cover came out shortly after. Italian Vogue dubbed you La Freak. Karl Lagerfeld called you the beauty of the new millennium, and also a mixture of something from the Middle Ages and a mutant from another planet. You've said about being called La Freak, the idea of being La Freak was really depressing. I was like, my whole life I've been called weird, and now these people are calling me it too. At the same time, you don't want to bite the hand that feeds you because you're getting attention for being an individual, but it was hard to be called the freak of fashion. So that cover changed everything within weeks. Karl Lagerfeld made you the face of Chanel, and you closed the Chanel Ready to Wear show in March 1997 as the bride. Last night, Tawny Goodman called and told me she remembers that show, what a presence you had, and that she ran backstage and cut in front of everyone to get to you and offered you a Harper's Bazaar shoot with Patrick Demarchelier in St. Bart's right there on the spot. She wanted you first. It was funny how she talked about it. She's like, I know I shouldn't have done that, but I cut in front of everybody to push people out of the way. So take us through that first meeting with Meisel and the transformation, what you remember about it. I love how you described the transformation because I was wondering if Stephen actually created Karen Elson like a fashion Frankenstein or if he freed her. And now I know he let you out. He woke you up. It reminds me of what Julien Deese told me when he was cutting Linda's hair. He felt her, he says, coming out and coming out. What was it like watching yourself transform? You've said the inner became the outer. Did it feel like you were finally becoming yourself, or did that realization come after?
The realization happened during. And so, again, having the intuition when I met Stephen, I just knew. I just knew when we met that I was like, this person sees me, sees the little eccentric girl
Yeah.
in there and sees the sort of the dreamer, and he did. And we just clicked. Some people you just click with. Me and Steven clicked. I feel that way about Tim Walker and about Peter Lindbergh. You
Like
just
you might have
click.
known each other in another world or something.
We just clicked. I understood the language of what he was speaking, and he understood me. And that shoot, the cover shoot, the Italian Vogue cover shoot, it was incredible. We had Ward on hair, Pat McGrath. I mean, Pat obviously was already an amazing makeup artist at that point. She was already working a lot with Edward Enninful and Craig McDean, but I think it was the beginning of her legendary relationship with Steven. And he gave her, yes, exactly. And I have that. I have a print of that over there that Steven gave me. I have a problem where I'm so grateful that photographers give me prints, but they give me prints of me. And then it feels like the picture of Dorian Gray where I'm surrounded by photographs of myself. And I'm like,
that is so funny, but
I'm so grateful for the prints. But then there are days when people come over to the apartment and I'm like, I know.
That is so,
we have pictures of me.
I never thought about that. I never thought about that.
I'm like, but I am so detached from photos of me at this point. But
of course.
in a healthy way, I think. But that moment with Steven it was so incredible. It was a shoot that I always knew I had in me, and it was a playground, and to be with the best of fashion and to watch them work and to be a part of it and to have them encourage me to give as much as I can for a photo. And then as Pat shaving off my eyebrows and going, please transform me. Please turn me into who I know I really am. It was so significant in my life because, again, like I said, the inner became the outer. The girl I knew I was being finally shaped and molded in this way. And in a way, almost how Meisel, he shaped me like a piece of clay, but he also knew that within me contained all the ingredients already. Right. And that's the genius of Meisel. They called him the Svengali for a reason, because he just has this, he still does, has this innate ability to sort of feel these things about people.
And so what I'm thinking is it's almost like he didn't mold you. It's almost like he was peeling off what wasn't
He brought
you.
the best out. He brought the best of me out. And he brought that's it.
Yeah.
And
he
with
felt
a visionary
your spirit and knew what, see that?
How my spirit should manifest itself. And he absolutely did that with me. And I'm eternally grateful, genuinely, to Steven. I mean, he changed my life, and Pat and Ward and Brana. I mean, everybody who was on that shoot, know. And
I looked at how many covers came right after that. I mean, it was
we did so much. And it was a playground, and it was a time in fashion where you could have 40 pages and you could shoot 40 pages in 2 or 3 days and just make magic and dream and tell stories. I talked to Grace Coddington about this actually when we had lunch the other day. This sort of era of storytelling in fashion was that era.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some major ones that
you could really tell stories. And it was remarkable to be a part of that storytelling. And again, the inner became the outer. But even then, it was challenging because I've noticed even today, like whenever things start shifting in fashion, you've got the people who are like, oh my God, that's incredible. This is forward momentum. And you've got the people who are like, oh, that's terrible. What's happening? And I just think progress is strange. And I think people are, even myself at my age, can be naturally resistant to sort of the change of what's happening, but the change is good. And I think back then, being called sort of, a freak.
But how did that happen? How would
actually,
Vogue?
At first, I found it as a term of endearment. Karl Lagerfeld was the one who actually used it at first. But after my Italian Vogue cover with Steven, I then worked with Karl for Chanel. I had the best time. Like Steven, I felt so empowered by Karl and inspired by him, going to his home, his office. He had this oval table where every day there'd be so many interesting people coming to sit around that table, and we'd shoot Chanel, and then he was doing another shoot for another thing. And I was soaking it all in. It was incredible. I mean, in hindsight, I'm like, pinch me. And even at the time, I was like, this is incredible to be around all these interesting and inspiring people. But it was a term of endearment. I know that Karl saw me also. And was so encouraging of me. But then, of course, you know how things go.
Yes.
Before clickbait, it was tabloids.
Right.
So then they see in the press release, like, a freak from another. If you could read the whole paragraph, what Chanel and what Carl wrote, it was so beautiful. But then
they only picked
the
up
tabloids
that part.
picked up on the freak, le freak. And then it became this ugly Northern English, dumpy, blah, blah, blah girl. And then it became this sort of shit show, dare I say, of just, you're ugly, you're ugly. I mean, I remember my agents had this one German TV show follow me around for a day. And I actually, like, halfway through, I dropped them. I was like, oh, you can't get into this fashion show. So sorry. And I left them because the woman, basically, this German, very, very, sort of, it's almost like a German tabloid talk show. I don't know why my agents at the time thought that was appropriate. I mean, again, you're sort of newly successful, so they're just throwing everything at you. And it became this thing of this woman basically was like, why do you look so ugly? You know, why are you so ugly? Like, why? And she's asking me that. I'll never forget, because they have the camera on me, and Alec Weck was standing in the same vicinity. And Alec was like, how dare you talk to her like that? And I was like, why am I so ugly?
Yeah.
Like, and she's like, everybody in Germany thinks you look so ugly, and it's been written about in the newspapers. And I was oh God, I'm really, wow. How am I supposed to reply to that? And like I said, article after article in the United Kingdom, in tabloid or even more serious newspapers about sort of, you know, good luck to this dumpy Northern girl. And it was, people did not expect much of me and were telling me to enjoy it while it lasts. But then it sort of became this self-fulfilling prophecy, because then I'm working and working and working. And, you know, I'm young. I'm quite ill-equipped for the levels of work that I was doing. I was probably on a transatlantic flight 2 or 3 times a week for 6 months, like no sleep, not flying in business class, flying at the back of the bus, like exhausted, tired. I was getting burnt out. You know, by the time I reached 19, I started to feel really, I'd been worked to the bone, and I was really tired. And, you know, when you're working really hard and you're not having the ability to look after yourself. And I started getting really bad sort of acne. So a dermatologist put me on birth control, and then I gained some weight, and it's like, oh wow, I'm finally getting some boobs. Like I was thrilled, you know, but then it was like maybe my second or third season.
You have so many covers those first
but I just
through 99, 98, 2000.
But then it all kind of came to a grinding halt, because, like I said, I was burnt out, exhausted, on a plane constantly, not being able to take care of myself, not having any time off, and being 18 years old, just turned 19. Like I said, the skin was getting bad. I got put on birth control, gained a bit of weight, also combined with like just not having a second and being completely burnt out. And I went for Fashion Week, and I'm in Milan, and I'm at a fitting, and I don't fit in an outfit, and I can start hearing people saying in Italian, oh, she's disgusting. Look how fat she is. Oh, she looks disgusting. And I can understand at that point what they're saying, and they're talking about me. And I just remember, like, in the fitting, sort of tears rolling down my eyes and going, stiff upper lip, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And then I leave the fitting, and I knew that I was going to get canceled. I just knew. And then my agent, I go into my agencies before cell phones, and they're like, listen, you've been canceled from the show. And for some reason, and I don't know why, I mean, to this day, I'm like, who told people that I got canceled from the show? Like, that all of a sudden it got like, well, I actually have an idea, but I'm going to keep that to myself because I
Oh,
told
I didn't
somebody,
even
and
think about that.
it was like dog eat dog business back then.
Yeah,
And
because I didn't even think about that fact, Karen, that
I told a model that I got canceled from the show, and I was crying about it. And I think that she called the press.
right, because that could be the only,
It was dog
because the
eat dog.
designers would never have done
It
that.
was, ooh, yeah, maybe
Well,
they did. I
because
don't know.
no, they wouldn't have. I can't imagine designers would do that because
But
that's
it got
backlash on
leaked.
them.
I mean, I know, look, I told somebody who was big model back then,
Yeah.
and I think that, God, it's, so slightly mean. Well, it was very mean girl back then.
Yeah.
And I think she called the press. And then the next thing, I'm literally comfort eating in my hotel, the Principe di Savoy. And I'm like eating spaghetti, like, fuck them, I'm
Yeah.
fat. Literally like eating spaghetti
Yeah,
bolognese, like,
yeah.
fuck you all. Excuse my
Yeah,
language. I was like eating my feelings even more.
yeah.
And I'm watching CNN, and all of a sudden my face, Karen Elson's been canceled for being too fat. I'm not
Oh
joking.
my
I am not
God.
joking. I am not joking. She's been canceled from blah, blah, blah show for being too fat. And these two like fashion journalists are like debating if I'm fat or not.
Oh
And
my.
I'm sitting there as I'm like eating the spaghetti bolognese, like, and then it's like the phone starts ringing and it's like canceled, canceled, canceled from every single show. And it was so humiliating, like the most humiliating thing that has probably ever happened to me. Because once you get tarred and feathered in fashion for being one thing, I spent a decade trying to prove to people I'm not fat. I mean, it's
Right.
disgusting when I think about it. It is so humiliating and wasn't true as
Right.
well.
Right.
Sure, I didn't fit a sample. That's what happened. I didn't fit the clothes.
Like
Sue
one
me. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, yeah,
exactly.
like, but it became a thing. And like fashion can be a bit of a blood sport,
Right.
of, oh, that she's over, that was a flash in the pan that came
Right.
and went, and it felt very bloodthirsty, and that people were just gleeful in a way that
Right.
I was being like, quote unquote, canceled for my body. And it really, it took a toll on me. It really did, because it just, to be sort of on a pedestal for
Mm.
a year and a half, and working so hard and being so exhausted as it is, but so grateful for the
Right.
work. And then in literally a day, it went from you're the busiest model in the business to the loneliest, like, one, that you've just been kind of canceled from everything. It was so heartbreaking. And it took probably a good almost year for me to get back into the business. But in order for me to do that, I had to prove to them that that I fit the clothes. And that was
Right.
really challenging for me, because it really went against my like soul.
Yeah.
Like I was
Yeah.
saying, I
It's back to
remember.
what you were saying before. It's like it wasn't, again, it was your business. It was like what you had to do to
And I
work.
saw very clearly back
Yeah.
then, you will go back to Manchester
Right.
and you will be a laughing stock if you don't lose the weight
Right.
and get back up and go, all right, see, I'm back and I'm better than ever.
Right.
I had to kind of have that mentality, but it was a really lonely 6 to 9 months where I barely worked. I was living in New York. I'm sort of going through my savings. I'm
Right.
feeling depressed. I think at one point I had an option for hosiery, not even my head. It was like my legs. That
Yeah.
was just to make some money. And an agent I had at the time was like, if you can't lose the weight, we're going to have to drop you. And
Oh,
again, look,
God.
I was like, I'm going to say, like, I was the body that I have today. But it's actually not the body that I have today. I'm the same weight as what I am now.
Right.
And okay, like I fit in the clothes, it
Right.
just, but it was just, I don't know. It was really challenging and humiliating is the thing that and I saw the coldness of the
Yeah.
business. like the fakeness, to be honest with you. Like, oh, you're my best friend. It's like, you're the best thing since sliced bread, and everybody is like fawning over you. And I recognize how fickle that was and how fake it was and how insincere. And people are with you when you're at your best, and they love to kick you when you're down. But I learned some lessons, and it gave me a bit of a thick skin. And it's like, sorry, it's so loud right now.
Oh, yeah.
You're so lucky that my husband took our dog to work with him, because that dog would be barking his little head off right now with the siren.
So I want to get to the good side. And
Yeah, because there's a lot of good too.
Yeah. That Vogue Italia cover opened every door. And the door that mattered most was Vogue itself, not just the magazine, but the people inside it.
Mm-hmm.
Over the past 25 years, you've worked with virtually every major editor and photographer in fashion. Grace Coddington, Paul Cavaco, Tony Goodman, Phyllis Posnick, Steven Meisel, Peter Lindbergh, Stephen Klein. Of course, I'm American Voguing it over here, appearing more than 35 times across Vogue editions worldwide. But before we get into specific shoots or names, I want to talk about something that kept coming up again and again when I interviewed the legends on this podcast. The idea of the model as a collaborator, not a body to dress, not a mannequin, but a creative partner. You said something to Nick Knight that perfectly captures how you approached your work. When a model comes in and has something, be it just an interesting look, but also an interest in the creative process, it can push it forward if you have somebody who's willing to go the extra mile, to let a photographer, stylist, hair, makeup, let them all use you as a canvas. That is what I feel my job is, to be a canvas. I've heard versions of that sentiment from everyone I've spoken to. Paul Cavaco told me, part of what makes models brilliant is what they bring to the photograph. People think models just stand there and look beautiful, snap, picture done, but you leave out their humanity. Tani said, every model I've ever worked with has a soul and a spirit and an essence. We allow them to collaborate, and in turn, that becomes real. Stephen Klein put it bluntly, the Ambers, the Lindas, Trentini, Karen Elson, they're like actresses. And Grace Coddington, along with Karen Mulligan, said something that came up repeatedly. Karen can do both. She can act and be a model simultaneously. Before we talk about photographers as directors, I want to stay here for a moment because your relationship with editors were just as important as your relationship with photographers. In your case, they weren't just professional, they were protective, they were collaborative, and at least one case, they were deeply personal. You wrote on your Instagram once about Grace that read, Grace has been a constant in my life from the moment I met her. I view her as a mentor, my fashion mother, and a dear friend. You've also said that before your first American Vogue shoot, Grace, along with Tani, prepped you for meeting Anna. What to say, how to act, even what to wear. You arrived in a ratty vintage coat and Grace told you to take it off. They dressed you, they protected you. That editor-model relationship, especially with editors who had once been models themselves, seems crucial. They understood what it meant to walk onto a set with expectations, how vulnerable the body is, how much emotional labor goes into effortless images, and how easily a model could be misunderstood or mishandled. So when did you realize that modeling at the level you were working was really about collaboration and trust?
Well, it's so interesting that you're talking about the editors. I teared up when you started talking about Grace. I mean, I could tear up.
Yeah.
Oh, she has been such a protector of mine and such a teacher. I adore Grace. I adore all the editors I've worked with. Tani, Brana, Katie Grand, Edward Enumful.
Yes.
Edward is one of my dearest friends. And the common theme all of them have, from Grace, Edward, Katie, Tabitha, is that we've formed such deep friendships. They are family, and they just take me as I am. I mean, Grace, again, she's family. I view Grace as a sort of surrogate mother, you know? I mean, she's so important to me as a person, I'm not a fan of the word mentor, but she is my mentor. I look up to Grace so much. I look up to her sort of determination and her imagination and her bluntness as well, and her just who she is as a creative individual. I mean, it genuinely tears me up because she's also had my back from the beginning. I mean, that first meeting with
Yeah.
Grace, and she got me in the magazine. She got me in American Vogue. She got me in American Vogue. She's kept me in American Vogue.
Right.
She's
Well,
kept
I'll
me
tell you, I talked to Tani last night, and I was asking her, she was doing the covers. I asked Paul this too, because Paul was doing the covers. Like, why didn't Karen ever have a solo cover? And she was only on that one all the way on the
the
side.
group one, yeah,
Yeah,
the
and
American Vogue one.
basically during Paul's time, it was the same as during Tani's. You were Grace's girl. Tani said she had to fight, what did she say? Beg, borrow, and steal to get you for that big Stephen Klein story. But that's what it was. Like, and
It's
it's
so
funny because I
funny.
mean, I've been in those meetings. You don't
I
like
know, I
you
know,
don't
I
touch
know,
a
I know.
Grace girl because
I
it's
know, I
like
know. But thank God I was a Grace
I
girl, you know?
know.
Like she's given me so much. I mean,
Yeah.
she's just but actually it's funny that you mentioned that Stephen Klein, the one we did
Oh, we're
at
gonna talk about that. I have the
oh, it was
whole
amazing.
yes,
My
and
God. But
every picture ran. But yeah, I want to
incredible.
go
But
through three different photographers, just how
there's
they direct you after
yeah,
this.
but the
Yeah.
relationship to the model and the editor,
Yeah.
again, like Edward posted a picture yesterday that we did with Steven Meisel, this Italian Vogue that we did. And there was a summer where I basically lived in LA with Edward and Steven and all the models Steven shot. We were all there in LA just doing shoot after shoot after shoot. And it was like glory days of
Yeah.
just fashion and the life experience. And I love these people with all my heart. Like they are family to me. And that is the thing. I'm walking in the door, like sleeves rolled up,
Yeah.
ready to go. Let's play. This is our
Yeah.
creative box that we're in. I am there to just, I love it. I love being around creative people. Like
Yeah.
Grace, I did a shoot for W with her maybe a couple of years ago. And Grace is in her 80s and it's 100 degrees outside in the heat. We're shooting with Craig McDean and she's on the floor putting the shoes on. And you're like, Grace, come on now. And but you know what? I love her for
Yeah.
that. She is vibrant. You know, even the last couple of shoots I've done with Edward, vibrant, just hungry and alive for creating beautiful imagery. And Tawny
Yeah.
as well. I've done so many beautiful
Yeah.
shoots with Tawny.
I mean, that
Um,
Patrick one is
I love the Patrick one.
incredible.
I loved that
That
one
you
so
know
much.
how that is there's a lot of studies on that. Like you could Googling that,
Interesting.
people pulled that out. And it's
And we were just in St. Bart's,
I
probably in the
mean,
midst of his vacation or Fabian Baron's vacation. And we
it,
just,
for that to be your first bizarre shoot, and Tani telling me, because everything, she has said it was based on Diana Vreeland's Whale.
Mhm,
Like
mhm.
there was a whole thing, but I was pulling the pictures and I was like, this is incredible, that story.
So funny,
Like
isn't it?
I
It's like
have it.
some of the most beautiful stories I've done. Yes, it's hard work, but there's also been this magic alchemy that's happened where it's all like, when you're with really
I
good
mean, look
people,
at that.
beautiful pictures. I mean,
I mean,
Patrick, beautiful, but
yeah,
when you're working with people who are so talented that you just show up on set and it's like magic happens, Even when it's hard work, I've done shoots where we shot all night,
yeah,
where
I love this.
beautiful, beautiful. I mean, the lines, the
Yes. It's like a McGree painting. I
but
mean,
you know
it's
what's also interesting about that story is everybody at that point sort of view me as this sort of hyper technicolor, bright hair, this punky.
oh, after
And
that cover for sure.
that shoot was where it was understated and
Yes.
elegant
Because your hair
and
was wet, so it was almost dark.
mhm,
Yeah.
and it sort of brought me
You look
into a
like
bit.
Tawny. Tawny made you as Tawny.
All the editors want you to be them though.
Oh, you are Tawny.
Tawny, like I remember
That
when
is
I first
so
met Tawny, I was like,
funny.
who is this
Oh, when she
absolutely
ran up to you,
gorgeous,
when she ran
but
up
the
to you.
most gorgeous, I was like, who is this Joni
Yeah,
Mitchell-esque,
yeah,
just at the bone structure
yeah,
and the limberness. I was like, it's interesting that a lot of editors were models
yeah.
because they understand the business in such a way and they understand models. I've been so lucky. I mean, I could tear up thinking about the relationships that I have to the editors, because they are so vital to me. And we're behind the scenes laughing like, oh my God, here I am.
Yeah.
I'm
Phyllis.
changing in the middle of nowhere in a desert, or you're
Yeah.
peeing behind a bush and the editor's holding up the. You go through so many things with people on a shoot. And often the photographer's the one who is taking the pictures, and then the behind the scenes, the hair, makeup, the editor. We're all, kind of clumsily getting through it, and then you capture the image, and then I don't know, there's just a magic to those relationships.
Phyllis,
but that's what makes a good model.
yeah,
That is what
yeah,
makes a good model, are those relationships. You can't
yeah,
just show up and be beautiful.
right.
You cannot.
It's
No
deeper.
successful model in history has just showed up and was beautiful. You have to bring more to a picture. You have to
Right.
be
And that's
willing.
what we're going to talk about with the photographers. But Phyllis texted me, when was it? It was this morning. Working with Karen makes my job easy. She's special. She's an actor who sees the picture we're after and collaborates to make it better. One of my favorite photos is the Penn portrait, where her charm, wit, and beauty made it memorable. Penn adored her. And
Oh,
that
don't
is
make me
this.
cry. Oh.
And that's this
Oh, I
incredible
remember that. And Mr. Penn was
picture.
the only photographer who asked me what
That's
I wanted to do.
98, Karen,
I
98. You
know,
were
I
very
know.
young.
God. And Mr. Penn asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up. I mean,
Wow.
what a beautiful question to ask a teenage girl. Nobody had asked me that, because you're viewed, when you're so young, but everybody around you is an adult. So they just assume that you're an adult as well, or
But
treat you like
also,
you're an
it's
adult.
saying you're not just going to be a model. And look, you're not,
Right.
you know what I mean? What are you
But
going
it
to
was
be after
so,
this?
it was so tender, and it was so
Yeah.
paternal.
Yeah.
And I will never forget that, being asked that question, because it just touched me.
Yeah.
It was like, wait, you also see me as the young woman that I am.
Right.
And maybe only in the way Irving Penn could, because at that point he was, I'm trying to think, how old was Irving Penn when
I
he
mean,
passed?
he
It
must
was a
have been
few
in his
years before he
70s.
passed. And I just think, in a way, that a person who has lived a really rich life, when you're around a young person, you're charmed by them, and you
He
say,
was
what do you want to.
92 when he died. And
So he was
he's,
in his 80s. He was in
wow.
his 80s, late 80s. It was such a
Yeah.
moment of wisdom, of what do you want to do when you grow up. It was so sweet the way he asked me that. And I will never forget it.
Yeah.
I will never forget that. But again, I think what people really negate in the world of sort of Instagram, where everybody's a model, or TikTok, and influencers, and not to say that is the new world we're navigating, but I will say any successful model I have ever been around, from Kate to Naomi to Christy Turlington to Linda to Krista McManamy, Guinevere, all
Yeah.
of the greats, they've developed relationships, personal
Yes.
relationships with the editor, the photographer, the
Yes.
designer.
So let's get to the photographer, because you
Yeah.
have some very deep relationships with many
Yes.
photographers. So the Vogue years photographers, different photographers have their muses, the model or models who understand how to be the woman they want, the woman they see. When I was at Vogue and scheduling meetings where we decide the editor, photographer, and model for each story in an issue, many times I would hear an editor say a photographer needs a specific model, or how the photographer didn't work well with a specific model, that she wasn't the photographer's type, or that so-and-so was a Klein girl. When I had Paul Cavacco on, he told a great story about Linda Evangelista and David Sims. We were talking about chemistry on set. He told this story. So it's like what happened at Bazaar when we had David Sims and Linda Evangelista. David at the time was shooting much younger models, sort of grungy girls. It was like the world was changing. But she did something that was so funny. We're ready to shoot the first picture. She's in a man's suit. And she goes out and she just falls into the grass in this position that feels very David Sims. So he picks up his camera, is about to take the picture, and then she strikes a pose and starts laughing and says, "See, it's only modeling. It's not whether I'm that person." And so she could do both things. So when she did the picture, she gave David David. He would say, "Linda kicked the ball." There was no ball there. He'd say, "Whistle." She couldn't whistle, but she made you believe it. We did the bizarre woman as David Sims's woman, so we never lost him. You can't lose him or her. Paul also said the reason models work so well is because they know what to do. They're also not afraid to be a fool, whereas an
Mhm.
actor will be fearless in front of a movie camera, but maybe not so fearless doing stills. So that's what I want to talk about now, the photographers who saw something in you and how you learned to become their woman. And that sense of trust, of being seen not just as a body but as a collaborator, is what allowed the work with certain photographers to go deeper. Because when you look back at your career, you weren't just modeling, you were acting, building character, emotion, and a narrative in a single frozen frame. I've always thought this. I wish we could see the film versions of so many of your Vogue editorials, because what you were doing in those images wasn't fashion photography, it was cinema, compressed into a still. Actors get time, they get dialogue, they get movement. You had one frame. And no one understood that or pushed it further than the photographers who approached their work like directors. So let's start with the one who changed everything, Steven Meisel. We've talked about Steven and how he transforms models. Garen told me how he directs the body. Point your right knee there and put your left hip that way.
Mhm.
But I found 3 shoots that seem more like movies than his more traditional fashion studies. So when I saw the theater of fashion, I have not seen that before. That
Right.
Italian Vogue. You were 19.
Ugh.
I'm just in complete shock and awe of that story. And I'll show images. I'll have the images on the screen when I put this on YouTube. But
Yeah.
I
Sure.
mean,
Wait, pull it back up
oh
again.
yeah,
Let me, I'm
yeah.
like so blind. Oh,
It was
that one,
war. It
incredible.
was war.
That one's incredible.
Okay,
That-
so and then the forecast fashion trend spotting, all the Mizell girls looking alike.
They
Short.
shoot horses, don't they, as well? That shoot with
Oh,
Amber,
yes,
Kristen. Yeah,
yes. But
that one. I love that shoot
I mean,
so much. Yeah.
yeah, and then of course your Ginger Rogers. I mean,
Oh, I
yeah.
love that
I
shoot
mean,
so much with Christopher.
I
Christoph,
mean,
yeah.
so looking at these, I don't see modeling. I see acting.
Right,
Now that
right.
you're formally training as an actor, do you see similarities between what you did on these shoots and what you're doing in the class now? And just talk about being directed and that theater of fashion. I mean, I don't know how. I'm just mind boggled by that
I
shoot.
remember that shoot so vividly. I mean, and so many, obviously there's so many shoots that I've done with Steven,
But
and
that this is you're playing soldiers going through something
he was
traumatic, like,
playing the soundtrack to Apocalypse Now
oh my
behind the,
God.
as we're shooting that.
Yeah, like
And
how
you
is
just
he
had it was
directing?
improv. It was improv. And there was,
Improv.
well, improv to a degree, but where you're holding one person over your shoulder and he's
Yeah.
put the music on and you're just, and you just have to envision that's what you're doing and just do it. I mean, in a way, this is the
But
I mean,
did you
Stephen
do
is a
it?
filmmaker. So
Yes.
you've said it beautifully. Like
But did
you're
you
capturing a
do
still in a film.
but how did I mean, not everyone who's a model think like when I looked up modeling, I mean, it has nothing to do with personality. It says
But
showing
that's where they've got it
clothes.
wrong. That's where they got
Right.
it wrong.
But he did he test you? Was there a test before to
No,
see
I
if
think they probably,
it,
when they were casting it, they
yeah,
knew the models
the
who
models
could do
could do.
that. I think they just know who are the models who can bring that. And
And what did
the
he tell
models,
you guys? Like, okay, you're soldiers. Did
he
he
well
give you a
he's
backstory?
brilliant, Stephen, in this sense with shoots, because it's the psychology of it. Okay, for instance, when we did the They Shoot Horses, the Don't
Yeah.
They story, they're
Yes.
playing sort of Peggy Lee and music of that era and
Well,
getting
that
you
fashion
into
show that you had to do.
the fashion show that I did McQueen
Yeah. Yeah, but
after I
that
did.
right, but that too. I
But
mean, which
Stephen
we
is a
don't.
genius in the sense that he understands the world he's creating, and it's a sensory world. And it's so funny as I'm studying
Yeah.
acting with, and I want to be like really respectful with my acting teacher, because he really is, he's so phenomenal. And the classes that I'm doing, or with a lot of working actors, theater
Yeah.
actors, actors who are on TV,
Yeah.
students, myself, who's a model. In the
Yeah.
class, I
Yeah.
realize how much modeling has informed me, because there's a willingness that you have to have when you're getting up on a stage in a basement full of some really amazing actors that you're like, oh God, am I gonna suck right now? But modeling has given me the fearlessness to go, I can do this, and realizing that improvising is a lot of modeling. Being on set and going, okay, this is my dress. This is the light. This is the music that's being played. This is what the photographer has, this is the world that we're in. Now I have to just embody it and have to
Right.
live it. And if you're awkward, if you're unable to sort of get into the magic of it, you're not going to be called back. You have to be
Right.
willing to throw yourself in the deep end as a model and go, I'm going to dance with Kristen McMenemy and she's gonna be dragging me up, or I'm
Yeah.
going to be on that shoot you just brought up. Like
Yeah.
we are soldiers in war. Like Pat has put makeup on us. We've got
Yeah.
the Apocalypse Now soundtrack. We've got flames behind us. We've got girls that we're dragging,
Yeah.
with us, and you just have to believe it.
What
That
does he say about, do you have to look like,
you still
because
have
the
to be
heart,
mindful of the camera. You still have to
right?
be,
That's
you
the
still have to be,
that's
you
the
have to be
hardest
like
part.
face,
Yes, I know.
face, and you're still like,
That's what's crazy.
but that's the Steven Meisel
Yeah.
school of, I say Steven Meisel school of modeling. What I will say is that there is a magic that Steven, he's on some shoots, he would have like a mirror so you can see yourself. And it is true on some shoots, it is turn your head 3/4,
Right.
look at the camera a certain way. But he creates this really special environment where you are just free with
Right.
him and
I
you're
hear
locked in
that.
with
That's what
him. and
everyone
and
says.
and it's really different. And it's just how Stephen works. It's magical. But he is able, because he is who he is, to
Right.
create this world that you live in. And then you
Right.
you bring it. And I've done such a variety of different shoots with
So the
Stephen
Ginger
where,
Rogers, so those are
oh, I
stills. So
love that shoot.
did you
You
have
know how that
to,
shoot came about? It's so
no.
interesting. Me and Steven used to send each other YouTube videos, and I used to send him videos of Ginger Roger dancing, because I just went down
Yeah.
I wish I was a dancer. I'm not. That's like, I can sing
But
for my
you've done
supper,
it
but
a couple times.
I can
Yeah.
fake it, is what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Well,
But
that's a good acting. Yeah,
but
exactly.
but I would send him videos of Ginger Rogers dancing, and just we had this. Me and Stephen have this. We could not speak for or communicate for 6 months, and then we'll just start sending each other
Yeah.
videos. Or
Yeah.
now we send I send him like random things on Instagram or whatever it is. But we used to
Yeah.
send each other videos of, it's like Liza Minnelli singing. I love
Yeah.
Liza Minnelli. I love Judy
Yeah.
Garland. I'm a showgirl at heart, right?
Yeah.
And we just had this kind of like a romance where we would
Yeah.
send each other things. And I think through that, he was like, let's do this story. And I was so thrilled to do the story. And it was beautiful. But again, he just
Beautiful.
creates the environment where he has the camera, he set up the sets. There's a lot of prep
Right.
beforehand. Then I show up on set and he's just like, go for it. So we go for
Right.
it. But a good model goes
Goes
for
for
it.
it. Yeah.
Goes
Yeah.
for it. You know the task. You're like, yes, I can be Ginger Rogers for a day. Like,
I mean,
kill me.
that's
How lucky I am.
amazing.
And that's how I approach it. So I have the same thing with Tim Walker. I would say, like Mizell, my relationship with Tim Walker in particularly, we almost have this sort of telepathic relationship. When I get in front of the camera, there's a dialogue that's happening without words.
Right.
And I have that with Stephen, and I have that with Tim. We just have this dialogue. And
Right.
I don't know where it comes from, but I'm grateful for it.
Exactly. Well, I want to talk about Peter Lindbergh because,
Yes. Oh,
I
I
mean,
miss him. I miss
yeah,
him so much.
because Grace Coddington, I've booked so many of those shoots, but I was never able to go on set. Grace Coddington told me when she was on that Peter wrote scripts for his shoots. She said they were always basically the same, and the guy always got the girl at the end. But it wasn't just concepts, actual scripts with character and story. He directed the models and actors. Peter was famous for saying he wanted to photograph the soul, not just the face. One story I cast that I love so much is A Winter's Pale from
Love
October
that so much.
2011. You and John Hawkes, who had just been nominated for an Oscar for Winter's Bone. This wasn't a fashion shoot. This was a film compressed into stills. Can you tell us about working with Peter and what it was like acting opposite a real actor who had just been nominated for an Oscar? And I have the
I,
issue right here.
Genuinely, this is one of my favorite stories I've done with Grace and with Peter. First of all, it was, I think, in Coney Island-esque, like very, very cold winter beach. But again, you're right. Peter captured the soul. He had a way of doing that. He was jolly and wonderful, and oh, I love those pictures. Each photographer has a spirit they embody, right? Probably like a director in film where they have their thing that they're most known for.
Yeah.
And Peter really loved women, but loved women, capitals, all caps, women.
Right.
He loved their strength. He loved their vulnerability. He loved the grit and the things that made us complex. And he was able to capture that in a photograph. And as a person, as a human, he was just such a joyful person to be around. I mean, I miss him. I miss his
amazing.
spirit. But when you were taking pictures with him, you could shoot a 12-page story in 2 hours if you were on a roll with Peter. He was very free. And even with this story that we shot, it was a very sort of free story, but again, they've done all the legwork. So when I walk on set, we've got the clothes, we've got the hair and makeup that is getting me in a character, and I just have to be in the character. I love John
But
Hawkes.
does he tell you, do you and John
Yes,
talk
Grace,
about?
yes. We talked about it. We talked about what
Okay.
the concept of the story was with
Okay.
Peter and Grace and John. And we had a conversation about what, we're having an affair where lovers sneaking away and we're being followed by the telephoto lens by the private investigator, and where that was our story. And obviously I'm a very well-to-do, elegant woman who's on my phone with my dark sunglasses.
Right.
We're trying to be inconspicuous, and John is the rogue elegant man. And again, when you've got the right people,
Right.
it just works. It was a wonderful day and not torture by any stretch. It was a playground. And John, it's funny because John and I stayed in touch after that shoot because he was doing something in Nashville. And I really appreciate him as an actor. I mean, he's such a formidable actor. But it's so funny when actors walk into fashion, they're actually more nervous.
That's what I wanted to ask.
He wasn't. He's an enigma, I would say. I've worked with a lot of actors on fashion shoots.
Yes,
where
you have.
They're
Yes.
much more nervous. They're much more nervous because they're in a world that feels
Right.
a little difficult for them because they're about the moving
Movement,
image where, like you said before, we're trying to capture that spirit in one frame.
Right.
And sometimes when you're lucky, sometimes it's one frame. Other times it's just a picture being like, hey, look at me, I'm beautiful, which that's the least fun for me,
Right.
But John was just genuinely easygoing, got into the spirit of it, was just there with me. He wasn't tortured about it. We just clicked, and
You can
that's where casting is really important because you got to find people who click. I've done shoots with actors before who I won't name where it was, you're like, oh, for God's sakes, they're so concerned. Do I look good? Do I look good? Is this, and there's an insecurity that happens and they're almost like, how do you do this? And like I said, I'm dipping my toe into the acting world and I'm learning a little bit I'm learning a lot at the moment, not a little bit, I'm learning a hell of a lot at the moment, but I'm also learning the differences between my job and that. And there are things that as a model that, like I said earlier, that have really helped me, but there's other things that I'm like, oh, that's actually limiting. I have to, because it's almost like I'm jazz hands all the way and the show must go on. Like as a model, your shoe falls off on the runway, keep walking, or throw the shoe off and keep walking.
But I see what you're saying.
Or keep moving. And there's a lot of modeling that you have to pretend that you're not in pain. You have to be like, okay, the shoe doesn't hurt me.
Interesting.
The shoe doesn't hurt me. The dress isn't too tight and cutting.
Feelings. That's the thing.
You have to feel like
Yes.
you have to, as I'm learning in my infancy
Karen.
of learning how to act.
Tapping deeper.
it's not being in denial in the moment, being in denial of your true, authentic feelings
You
of
have
what
to
you're having
use
within
it
the situation. You have to use
to
that.
use
Whereas
it.
so much of fashion, I have had to
Yes.
go, okay, I'm freezing right now. And,
Yes.
or I like the position I'm in is absolutely killing me, but like,
Yeah.
game face.
Where
We're
you think
still,
that's acting, but really you're not tapping. It's a
you're
different, it's almost
denial, you're
layers,
denying,
right?
you're
Yeah.
denying,
Yeah. But
I'm
yeah,
having to learn how to go, actually, I feel this, and I'm
yes.
going to apply
Use
that
it.
feeling to this thing. So
Yes.
it's been fascinating, but John was amazing.
But I
He was
want
the
to
perfect,
ask you, yeah, about two others, another
yep.
Oscar nominee, because I also wasn't on this shoot. But speaking of working with actors, you were the leading lady in Annie Leibovitz's The Other Man story for
I
American film.
loved,
A
yes.
full narrative inspired by betrayal. You, Michael Shannon, and Hugh Dancy, not a single
Mhm.
image, an actual story, a triangle, beginning, middle, end. This wasn't modeling, this was performance. Annie's different, and she, I don't even know, I mean, you would know the difference in how she directs. I would think she would direct more a picture than a story because she's very technical,
And
but
that's where the editor and the photographer come into play, because it's Annie who is like a painter with her light,
right.
with her photography, with the world that she is creating. And she's very cerebral as well. And then you have Grace, who is a storyteller. Grace is a storyteller. I did my own hair and makeup on that shoot because Annie
Yeah.
really wanted it to feel like
Yes.
me. And she wanted me to do my own hair and makeup. So I was like, okay, I'll stick some red lipstick on. And it was that the love triangle. So Hugh Dancy is my husband and Michael Shannon is clearly my lover. And that picture, I mean, a caveat I will have to say is that we were fawning over Michael
I
Shannon.
know.
We
And
were
Annie, Grace tells me
Annie,
that,
Grace, myself, we were just like,
yeah,
oh.
Grace says of this picture that Annie said, okay, you guys are done, go change her so that you and Grace would leave the room. And she closed the door and stayed with Michael.
Nothing happened. She just probably
Right.
took a picture of him,
But
I'm
how
sure.
did
But
now with
of
those
course.
two, because now there's two people.
But
Like,
we were all
did you all
enamored.
sit?
We had
But
a
did you,
dynamic. It was interesting. It's where I see these actors are
yeah.
so clever because we walked in and had a dynamic. And it's funny because Hugh, I've met him a couple of times before with his lovely wife, Claire
Yeah.
Danes.
Yeah.
And because I knew Claire back in the 90s, actually, when we were much younger, love
Yeah.
her. She's phenomenal. I mean, I wouldn't say that we're close anymore, but I
Right. Right.
really, when we were younger, we used to
But
run
there's a
in the same circles.
familiarity when he showed up. Because I've been
Yeah,
on a
there,
set with Michael and he doesn't
what's
engage
yeah,
or
but it was
didn't.
it
It
worked for the
worked. Yeah.
mystery of the shoot. And it's not that I found him to be a very personally like beguiling and mysterious but
Yeah. Yeah.
warm person, but because again reminds me just we need a bit more mystery in the world,
Yeah.
because mystery is beautiful. Like I look at the era we're in on social media and everything, and I'm like, the people who are mysterious, oh, it gives you a
Yeah.
lot to go with because you
Yeah.
can't pin them down. You
Yeah.
can't be like, that
Like a
person's an
Benicio del
eccentric.
Toro or someone like
Mystery,
that. Yeah.
mystery is underrated. And
Yeah.
I say this even as a model, like in this day and age, you have to be like a brand ambassador and post on your social media and
Yeah.
do all these things. And I'm good at that because I'm a talker and I can
Yeah.
talk. You and I could talk for another 2
I
hours and it would be,
know. I,
but with him, he had this mystery about him and it really worked for the shoot we were trying to do where he was the mysterious sort of
but did
lover.
Annie or Grace talk to you about the characters? Because I told them when I,
Grace, Grace,
okay, but
Grace,
I
and
never
Annie
said
always
who
has
was
an
who.
opinion.
Yeah.
Grace was talking about the character, but Annie also talks about the character as well,
Yeah.
just in a different
Yeah.
way. But I think I got the soul of the pictures from Grace. I sort of understood. Grace calls me up before shoots to give
Okay.
me. That's why she's so legendary. She
Yeah.
calls you before, make sure that you're understanding what's happening, etc. And it's
Were you intimidated or?
no. Again, I'm not.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
funny. It's like when I'm on those shoots, I'm not. I'm more intimidated these days when I go to my incredible acting class and have to get on a stage in front of 30 amazing students who are so talented. That terrifies me But when I walk onto a shoot with Grace Coddington and Annie Leibovitz, I'm like, this is going to be, because it's my wheelhouse. I'm
Yeah.
familiar with it. Where I understand why it's a situation where an actor will walk in and be like, what the hell? Because also, like, fashion's such you realize, like, acting has got so many different checks and balances. Like, before you go on set, you've done a rehearsal.
Right.
You've flushed out what this thing is. You've got the light.
You
You've
have
got
where to
this.
stand. You have
You have
your
your mark. You have, and you
Yeah.
might have a mark in fashion as well. You might have
Yeah, that's true.
but it's oftentimes there's a lot of unknowns that you're walking into in a fashion shoot.
Right, for sure.
I get mood boards these days, but there were many years I'd walk onto
Oh,
a shoot and
no.
it's like, oh God, there's going to be a lion on set today.
Yeah,
Oh God,
exactly.
I'm going to be
Or
thrown
it
into a.
changes, and it's like Stephen Klein. Like, it can totally change.
Oh, I've done shoots with Steven Klein when we shot all day and decided we didn't like the pictures, and then we
Yeah.
ended up in a Miami parking lot, and I'm stepping on a guy's face at 6 o'clock in the
I
morning,
want
and
to
you're
talk
like,
about Stephen Klein. So Stefan
please, I love him.
Yeah, Stefan Beckman and Garen both spoke about Klein's world and how you enter his world when you step on set. Stefan said, with Stephen Klein, he has such a strong point of view out of everyone. He has the strongest point of view. It's his world, and you're in his world. Is it twisted? It is a story. It's a film approach. Even the stills feel like film stills. Stephen told me on this podcast, I think like a director first, because I do approach my work like a director. I storyboard like a director. I give directions like a director. I break down my pictures like a director. So what character do you become on a Stephen Klein set? Like, how do you get into character, or maybe how do you get out of character? Because I hear about his music. And then tell me about the Alien shoot with Tani. Tani said, as I mentioned, it was September 2012, that she had to beg, borrow, and steal to get you for that story. But
So interesting. I never know these things behind the scenes. It's so funny. I'm so glad I was a part of that shoot. It's really one of my favorites. I've done, again, with Stephen Klein, I've been so lucky to do a number of shoots with him. And it's just such a great story. And
it's wild.
And I also think that story brought the best of all of us out. And sometimes the amazing thing about American Vogue back in those days is that it was it was incredible. There was a refinement to it. Like, maybe you could go absolutely crazy for Italian Vogue, but for American Vogue, you had to kind of rein it in just a little. But that guardrail made your creativity. I love those pictures. Like, so
the whole story
interesting.
That's the first time I've ever seen a whole story.
It was such a great story visually, and so much storytelling. And the brilliant thing about Stephen Klein is that he just goes all in. Like, when you walk into a Stephen Klein shoot, you are walking into Stephen's world, and you're not leaving it until he is done with the pictures. And you really have to get ready, even mentally, to go, I'm walking into a Stephen Klein shoot.
Who do you become?
You just know that you might be working all night, if that might happen, and don't make plans, because you're going to be, you don't know what's going to happen. But also, there's a commitment that he has. I mean, all the great photographers have a commitment, and there's a commitment that Klein has, that he will do whatever it takes to get the right picture. I always have this thing where people are like, oh, this person's difficult to work with, blah, blah, blah. I don't see it like that. I appreciate when a photographer is difficult, because they're working hard to get a picture. And sometimes that picture has to sometimes it's an easy labor, and sometimes it's a 12-hour, 24-hour labor. I mean, I've done shoots with Stephen Klein where we started at 9 a.m. and we finished at 9 a.m. the next day. It's hard, but then you look at the pictures and you're like, these are some of the most incredible visuals that I've done in a long time. And with that story in particularly, I mean, we were at, wasn't SpaceX, it was, remember when Virgin Galactic was a thing? Was it there? So we shot that in it was like in the middle of the desert, maybe the Mojave Desert in California, at one of the early kind of space, like the beginning of like space becoming like the next renegade movement, before Blue Origin, maybe before SpaceX. It was, Richard Branson had Virgin Galactic, and we shot at their headquarters. So we were seeing all these prototype space. And I became friends with this wonderful woman, Evie, who was a jet propulsion physicist. And we were surrounded by these fascinating people. And this is the part of the job where you're like, pinch me. I'm so
Yeah.
lucky. Like, I'm in the desert with rocket scientists for a weekend, and they're or a pilot who's going to be the test space flight pilot, and you're talking to them about these things, and you're in the prototypes, and you're around these amazing, brilliant geniuses. And then you've got the world that we're creating with Stephen Klein. And again, we had Garen on the hair.
Yes. Tani talks about the collaboration of
The hair,
that was a
and
full.
Val did makeup. Val Garland. What a legend, Val. You know, and she also, the pale skin, the dark lip, the black hair. But then Stephen Klein, his imagination and his visual storytelling. I saw you at the exhibition at the Brandt Foundation not so long ago. There is one of one Stephen Klein.
Exactly.
One of one. So many people try and emulate other photographers. It's like you cannot emulate Stephen Klein with the lighting, but also the sort of the brutalist sort of mentality as well. Like, it's sexy, it's dark, it's beguiling, it's mysterious, it's dangerous. Like, he toes the line of all these things. But then in that story, because it's American Vogue, like I said, there's the tension that you have with sometimes photographers would maybe at times had with American Vogue, because they had to kind of rein some of it in. But sometimes that worked to the genius of the photographs. And I think that story was the genius of that, because we could have gone
very weird
and very dark. But we went sort of Man Who Fell to Earth meets Blade Runner meets this futuristic
and there's
brilliance.
Still a powerful woman in there.
Always a powerful woman with Stephen Klein. She is a dominant lady. And again, everything with Stephen, there is that power play, the sort of the dominance and the submission that he has within the images. That it's fascinating. And I've done so many shoots with Stephen Klein, and they're always absolutely memorable, and some of the funniest stories, you know, where it's like, oh Lord, where, like I said before, where we did another shoot for American Vogue where we shot the pictures all day. And they were lovely pictures, but they lacked this certain edge. And I knew that we're shooting. And I'm like, I know what's going to happen. And we thought we were done at 6. And a producer who was working with him at the time was like, okay, go catch your flight. And I'm like, why is she so eager for me to get on the plane right now? Oh. She's like, oh, go. Because she was like, please don't give him an opportunity to say he doesn't like the pictures.
Right.
And I anticipated it. I was like, and then I look at my emails, BlackBerry days, and I look at an email, and I get an email from Anna Winter. And she's like, can you please stay another day? We need to shoot more pictures. And then the producer's like, just go. And I'm like, I'm not sabotaging myself today. Like, I'm staying here. And we ended up in a parking garage, reshooting, like I said, spraying this male model with water, my heel in his cheek.
I love
with Tawny. And there were moments where we're like exhausted and laughing and delirious and like, what the hell are we doing in a parking lot? But they were the best pictures. And that's what I love about Stephen. There is this tension, and you've got to work for it. I miss those days. I miss the days of having time to work for the picture. And maybe it doesn't work the first day. Maybe you need to reshoot the whole thing. Maybe it is going to be a challenge. But that's what makes a legendary picture. Sometimes it is Peter Lindbergh where you shoot 12 pages in an hour and a half or 2 hours. Sometimes you're up all night getting the picture. And it's that dedication and willingness to do that I admire about Stephen Klein. Like, he will take the picture as far as he can. And I love that about him. I mean, he's just the coolest as well.
The coolest. We've talked about the work, the images, the collaborations, the performances, but I want to zoom out for a moment. You entered this industry as a teenager who felt like an outsider. You were labeled different, polarizing the freak. And instead of smoothing yourself out or reshaping yourself to fit, you stayed exactly who you were. A lot of people last by adapting. You lasted by not adapting. When you look back now, what do you think actually carried you forward all those years? Was it instinct, stubbornness, curiosity, or something else entirely?
Yeah, I think I have a lot of will. I think I have a strong will. I think that how I was raised, the environment in which I was raised in, the circumstances of which I was raised in created, I am a very willful person. And like I said in the beginning, I've had a lot of good luck, but I've had the courage to work hard. And I think that's what's propelled me all these years, is that I view myself as a creative person. I'm often not content just to sit idle. I've wanted to make music. I was in a cabaret for a few years. I love my job as a model and I want to push it further. I probably drive my poor agents mad where I'm like, I want to work, I mean, I enjoy being it's not busy because it's more than just busy. I enjoy being around like vitality and creativity. And that's even as I'm learning about acting a bit more. It's the same mentality. It's like, I'm just hungry, I'm hungry to learn. I'm hungry to not stay stagnant. And I think that will that I have has been why I've had a long career, because I could have gone home after they called me ugly. I could have gone home after I got canceled from that show and said, that's it. I'm never going into this business again. And I've been able to pick myself up at the low moments and dust myself off and go, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. I'm going to keep moving forward. And, and that does take a toll on me sometimes. I mean, it's like, it's hard to always be a workhorse and to keep,
and I think this moves right into advice. You've said some great things in interviews and today that serve as advice to young models starting out, or anyone really. And your career is proof that it's possible. All the things people made fun of, weirdly, have been the things that have catapulted my career. Fitting in is so boring. To be yourself, that's the most beautiful thing. I'm off kilter, and that's my thing. I constantly have a devil on my shoulder telling me what I'm doing is really horrible. And then somehow the lightning strike happens and everything comes together. I've just realized I have to live with that devil on my shoulder a little bit more. My philosophy is always, okay, I might fall on my face. I'm willing to take that risk, but I'd rather take that risk than never do it. So if you could speak directly to that girl in Oldham, the one who felt strange, out of place, misunderstood, what would you want her to know?
Ooh, what a great question. Yeah, I think I would tell that girl or any young person. I'm a mother, so I have my, 2 kids. And the world is always going to tell you that you're too much. It's just the nature of humans. We're cruel. We're beautiful and we're cruel. And people can see a light in another and they want to dim that light. And it's like, keep burning the fire, keep throwing logs on that fire, keep following the intuition that you have about yourself. Keep working hard on yourself. Never let somebody define who you are. You must define who you are. Take advice, learn when to shut up, learn when to speak out, because there's value in both. There's value in taking advice seriously. Like, I'm a gabber, I can talk. And there's sometimes a moment for you, even myself, to shh and listen. And there's other times where, despite what people are telling you, stand up and believe in yourself and go, I know that person doesn't see the light in me, but I'm going to go towards the light anyway, because you just have to. And there's many moments in life when I reflect now, like, timing is everything. It really is. And trust that timing is everything, but also don't let fear put a lid on who you are. I've definitely struggled with that. I've definitely struggled with anything I have done creatively. It hasn't been like, oh, I'm going to make music. Oh, now I'm going to make music. It's been, I can't do that. Oh God, maybe I'll suck. Yeah, I'm going through all of it. I think half the time that everything I'm doing is terrible, like I said, but I just have to persevere. And you have to persevere. That's the reality of it. It's not that I have this blind faith in myself that it's all going to work out. I'm going through a washing machine of emotions in the rinse cycle, and I have to just trust.
But it doesn't stop you. Like,
sometimes it does, but then you have, but I recognize that when it does, I'm like, don't let it. Like, in a way, I wish I would have dipped into acting earlier, 20 years sooner, but I'm happy that I'm trying it out now. So there's no time like the present. While I have that a little bit of like, oh, I wish I would have, I'm also like, thank God I'm getting to this point now. Whatever it may bring. I'm not even doing it for the idea of like, oh, I want to be like
pushing yourself,
a star or whatever learning. It is. I'm hungry at this point in my life where I'm like, I want to learn something, a new skill, a new way of looking at the world. There was a time in my life where I felt like it was greedy to want more. It was like, I've been successful in these areas. Oh, you can't be too greedy. But it's not about being greedy. It's just about, you've got to explore the roads that your heart is telling you to go down.
Don't
and if you're
complacent,
but if you're lucky enough to have the opportunity, like I said earlier, you've got to have the courage to step up and go, okay, I've been afforded this opportunity. I'm going to now have the courage to go, all right, even if I suck, even if like people laugh at me or call me ugly or call me, what else? What's the worst that can happen? I've already been there.
Yeah, exactly. So at the end of each episode, I ask every guest the same 7 rapid fire questions, just this or that. Okay. AM or PM?
AM.
Text or talk?
Oh, I want to say talk, but I love when people text instead of call me, and I feel guilty. It's such a modern, awful thing.
Sweet or spicy?
Sweet.
Uber or Subway?
Subway these days, yeah.
Book or film?
Both.
Spots or stripes?
Stripes.
Top or bottom?
Top.
That's what Grace and Phyllis are. And then for you, first cover or first song?
First cover.
I want to end by repeating my favorite lyric of yours because I think it captures everything we talked about today. When I was young, I let the darkness drag me down, but I'm not afraid these days. Karen, thank you for trusting me with your story and for never sanding down the parts that made you different.
Jill, thank you so much. What a great thing you're doing. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for doing this.
Okay. And see you soon. I hope. Stay warm.
You too.
Dreading going outside right now.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, darling.
Okay, that's our show. Thanks for listening to Going Rogue. And be sure to like and subscribe. Today's show is produced by me and Maddie Rosenberg at Radio Free Rhinecliff with assistance from Maddie Kelly. Special thanks to David Vo for our great graphics and Taras Romanov for our epic theme music. See you next Friday.